tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Hazbinhotel Meets John Wick. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of CaioCoia on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The silent work of a tailor of the delicate skin of a woman working at his hands, showed such prominent work from a professional who seemed to know what he was doing, and the years of work of the same tailor who worked for the agency for so many years, most of the times was focused in making great works for his circle of friends, but now, the priority of his time was to make a masterpiece for not just his friend, but to everyone he respects and loves. A friend with who he seemed to have lost contact for so long. You know what? I'm going to take a PSS. I can't take all this waiting doing absolutely nothing. Luna was kinda bored of hearing the process of the tailor who seemed to ignore her rants, and noticing that her adoptive father was still sweating from such an uncomfortable scene, she wanted to laugh at him, but she didn't know the reason, but she knew the tailor wasn't someone simple, and just by looking at him was giving her goosebumps. You want to come Blitz? Ah yes, thank you Looney. I was holding myself all morning. Millie, we are going to the bathroom, have a good time with the tailor. Blitzo patted the head of his growling daughter, as she huffed and walked away, and Blitzo shouted not a second less, running away from the tailor who seemed concentrated on making sizes of the imp assassin. Okay. Millie smiled as she watched her co-worker and boss leave the room with her and Angelo's entire crew. The silence echoed as Millie watched. Angelo seemed happy to work alone with her, but during a few seconds alone she started to feel uncomfortable as no word has been said between the group and she wanted to say something. Miss Millie. Angelo with his softened voice came as he checked the quiet and uncomfortable lady who seemed to be sized by him using his metric line. She was squirming as he tried to make her comfortable. I'm seeing that maybe you are not used to having a tailor before. Ops, sorry, Angelo, it's because I am not feeling well by ya sizing not just my tights but even my chest size as well. And please don't go with miss, just call me Millie. She forced her smile as she felt the tailor using his best to not make her uncomfortable, but noticing that she was being difficult, he knew that for first-time clients that would be a normal problem. I understand it. You aren't my first client to be uncomfortable, but I assure you that I will not make you feel violated or even indignant, and the results of my work will always surprise whoever would ask for my work. And I'm doing this work for not just the sake of you all go rampage over the night, but to look fabulously on whatever occasion the missions will take you on. Angelo finished sizing the body of his friend and went directly to take his sketchbook. The sizing is complete, now I just want to ask you a few questions. Oh, sure. Millie gulped after witnessing her boss being interrogated by the humble tailor who seemed to be always aware of their answers. Style of weapon. Angelo decided to use different tactics which made not just Millie but Blitzo and Luna notice the different path of questions that the tailor has used. Air front line using blade weapons and melee to kill the others. The total opposite of Moxie, a good harmony of styles. How many blades do you use often? It was a huge contrast to what Angelo asked her husband, it sounded more like a job interview. Whenever I'll grab my hand into. I even have a huge axe that I'm excited to use tonight. Millie then suddenly felt why her boss seemed afraid from answering the questions. She couldn't lie, not knowing how he was doing it. But Angelo was in fact extracting everything he wanted from them. So the size matters, maybe if do this Millie, do you like fancy parties or you are more of a festival girl? Angelo decided to change the style of his questions, which made Millie look at him surprised. Well, I always liked a party, even if some kind of fancy party sounds boring to me. I think Moxie always would make them sound interesting to me, the same way I make him go to our country festivals. At the moment she said that, Angelo stopped and looked directly at her surprised. Moxie. Country music. Moxie hates country music. He must really love you to make sure that you have a great time over there. Angelo said as he kept looking at his assistants. 34, 28, 41. Well, I mean, he hates a lot of the songs, and the festival itself, but he really does his best to pass his time with me, and I think a good BLWJB would pay his time quite well after work. OF. Millie covered her mouth with her two hands while making Angelo almost lose his composition, and the assistants both males and females glanced at the girl surprised. Well, I would have said that was surprising, but I would be lying. I'm sure that Moxie enjoys his time appreciating with you. Angelo composed himself, even if Millie blushed like a mad girl during all the time. Well, do you want for a day and night as well? Yes, please. Millie covered her head in shame, but receiving a chuckle from the tailor didn't help at all. Well, Miss Wick, if you want me to be honest. I missed this kind of accent. Angelo said, which made Millie take off the hands from her face. I myself was a farm boy from a little place in Rome. My parents worked on a humble farm, and I was just a humble boy trying to live up to my own dreams. Ya were a farm boy as well. Millie forgot her sudden shame, which made the tailor smile at her. Yep, and proud of it. When I'm too tired after all this work, and when I have only time to take vacations. I wouldn't change for no place better than the farm I grew up. There was something on growing olives and taking care of the animals that it's really relaxing. Angelo said as he received a hum in agreement from the girl next to him. Yep. It wasn't fancy work, but it was what made me and my family happy. Millie agreed as Angelo took a piece of paper from his sketchbook. Millie, who scanned the piece of paper, never thought she would see something like that in her life. A dress, but not any kind of it, but a wedding dress. An elegant Renaissance Goth style of wedding dress, with layers of red and black silk covering the arms and the right side of the dress. The ornament resembling like a black rose with its vines. And a simple draw of her face with an elegant black flower over her face. What do you think? Angelo smiled as he could see the emotion getting over the girl in front of him. Moxie would be crazy if he wasn't going to let me at least make this dress for you. To be frank, I had this idea of dressing for Moxie's 1 month after his death, when I had a long night with bottles of wine and me thinking about what each of us would use if any of us got married. Millie remained in silence at the moment Angelo took the paper and noticed that tears were appearing on her face. Using tissue from his pocket, he cleaned her face. Usually works like that is what makes me love my job. And doing that for a friend makes me happy. Now. Another day we can plan a true wedding if you two get on vacation, and when you use this dress nobody will say that you didn't look good in this dress, and if you want, I can make some adjustments that you can place 4 tomahawks and 2 daggers on each side and a compatible to place a great sword as well. Angelo explained, and his words sounded like a song in Millie's ears, which made her nod her head to him in excitement. Good, now, let's finish your dress for the work today. Alright, Millie said as she couldn't wait for how her dress could be in the end. Even after having witnessed her wedding dress, now she understood how Moxie really appreciated Angelo. He was a friend to the core, even if he is kinda scary when examining them. Wowie, Uncle Moxie, it's really you, I'm so glad to see you again. The tiny child was hugging the chest of the fallen assassin, which contemplated the thoughts of his most fears being in front of him again. But glancing at the little girl who seemed to have been grown up so much in just 5 years, Moxie couldn't help but return the gesture and hug the little princess who has been taking his heart since her BRTH. I'm glad to see you too, Ellie, you've been growing so much, you are double your size when I last meet you. Moxie patted the head of the little girl who seemed to giggle in response. Yep, my mother said that sooner I could even kick some as like you. Where were you? Mom and Uncle Angelo and Auntie Glitch said you have been taking a lot of trips and have walked around the world all the time. Then the decisive question, which made Moxie sweat just the possibility of ever dealing with such a question. And now looking at her green eyes, her style of little punk with the gothic girl who followed the fashion of her mother, but yet having the sweet and innocent of a child, it was too much for Moxie to ever say the truth. Ellie, I have to be honest with you, I lost my other job. Moxie decided to play around with the truth. You what? The girl asked in surprise and was kinda horrified with the idea of her uncle losing a job into one thing that he always loved to do. Yeah, my boss was a meanie with my brother, so I decided to live in that trash place and I went to another place to find a better job, and now that I think about it, it's easier most of the part. I don't get paid too much, but yet it's something less worrisome for me after all. Moxie actually pondered after working into IMP, the only issue he had to deal with was with his boss and his coworker constantly teasings and curses, but taking that out he had actually a pretty solid good job to work every day. Really? Why didn't you visit us all that time? Elizabeth, while being happy to know about her godfather's new job, she quite didn't understand the concept of being dead and coming back to the world of the living. Well, it's because my new boss is kind of less meanie and makes us work around the world, and actually today is the only day I have the opportunity to come to this city and enjoy a bit of my time with my friends before I go back to work. Moxie tried to reasonably explain to a lovely 8-year-old child without explaining too many complicated words to her, but at the same time, she used her biggest weapon against the poor imp. So are you leaving now? The saddened tone made the gleam of her eyes stop shining and make Moxie curse himself so much, especially seeing how the tiny tears appeared on her face. Moxie screamed internally as he couldn't help but felt hurt after watching Ellie use one of the most terrifying tricks that had ever been taught her. Elizabeth, you learned really well how to cry. And at the same time, Moxie could see the change of expressions turned into 180 as Ellie got to smile again, and this time proud of herself. Thank you, Uncle Moxie, I kept practicing how to mani moth manip. Elizabeth was cheerful, but suddenly she couldn't find the right words to say, leaving Moxie to sigh with himself. Manipulate Ellie, I'm glad that your uncles and aunt are teaching you how to play with others' emotions. You really made me hurt. But now get back here, you little beast. Now, where is your mother? Moxie asked even as he remained on his spot looking at the girl who seemed really happy to see him. Oh, she told me that she had things to do, and let me stay here at the wreck. Ellie used the time to try to remember another difficult word for her, which Moxie promptly decided to help again. Receptionist. Gave a piece of information that made the tiny girl's eyes sparkle and nod her head like crazy to him. Yeah, that. She said she will be here soon, so I'm waiting for her. And I heard you are asking for pizza. Are we going to eat pizza? Ellie became excited as she was shaking, ready to pass her time with someone she hadn't seen in years. Well, oh, screw this. Moxie was going to say no to his goddaughter, but he suddenly remembered that her mother would appear in the next hour. Yeah, let's eat pizza. Yay. Ellie cheered as Moxie got up from the floor and carried the little girl, who giggled happily as she was mounting his back. Looking at Sharon, who remained on his spot watching the scene with a warm and sympathetic smile on his face, nodded his head at him. In 30 minutes the pizza will be ready and we'll go directly to the meeting room. So I recommend you to take the time to go back to your meeting, sir. Sharon recommended it since he knew there would take time for the meal, and the meetings are something sacred over the place, and having every single resource over the Continental never should be wasted. I will take your word for it, thank you for your service. I think Angelo will appreciate this. Moxie said as he looked at the girl on his back. Well, Ellie, did you know Angelo was here? Oh, Uncle Angelo is here. The girl's mouth formed an O as she looked excited once again. Wowie. Let's go see him. The girl used her feet to kick the back of her godfather, who yelped in surprise. Whoa, wait up, girl. I'm not a horse. I don't need to mush me. I will take you to him, and I have someone who will love you at the moment she sees you. Moxie couldn't help but felt the slight pain coming from the girl, who was so energetic and so innocent, that it made him refreshed after all the problems he passed. It was like he never left the world of living at once. Mush, Uncle Moxie. Mush, the little girl cutely commanded as she pointed in the direction of the imp assassin was going. Okay, I'm going. Moxie scoffed as he rolled his eyes in a pure smile. Carrying a surprise with him. And with that, we finished. Angelo took his metric with him as Millie sighed in relief after a few more rounds of questions about what would be an eternity of knowing the details of her new clothes. Wow, it seemed it could never end, Millie said as she stretched herself, earning a chuckle from the tailor who seemed to be used by it. Well, Miss Wick, usually all the first procedures will be longer since I would need to see the parts of their personality as we could create what would be the most stunning of suits. Usually for me it would take longer when it comes to female costumers since most of the dresses should be unique, and for the male public many have a prior style based on countries around the world, Angelo said as he took a towel with him and gave to the female assassin who seemed sweating after many minutes being interrogated and measured by him. As Millie would reply to the smiling tailor, suddenly the door was opened. With a blast, with what would be the smiling cheerfully boss and a rolling eyes teenager who came from what would be a bathroom visit. Mills, you will never believe what we found in the way of going to the bathroom. This place has everything. There was a place with a billiard pool and foosball machine over there, they even have a pinball machine. Blitzo smiled as he came directly to the chair and felt relieved at his employee who seemed to look with her eyes sparkling. Really? Millie asked cheerfully at her boss who nodded excitedly to see what would be their next hour of entertainment. Well, that seems interesting for you both. Well, why not you two go over there while I take care of the last person of the company? Suddenly a gentle voice came which made both Blitzo and Millie stop their smiles, and Blitzo turn into a frown and look at the tailor. Oh hell no, I'm not going to let my dear Looney into your hands. I know you are doing something to us, but I'm warning you. If you dare to touch my daughter like that I will rip your pee-pee and I will F you with it. Blitzo didn't care if the tailor was someone who is really as intimidating as he felt before, he wouldn't let a monster like him have his hands and make his daughter intimidating. The sudden aggression on the vocabulary made all the assistants have their eyes wide open in horror, while Angelo raised his both eyebrows in surprise. He then glanced at the girl who seemed rebellious and yet growling to her own adoptive father. Blitzo, what the F? You shouldn't make threaten him while we are on this place, remember that if we F up on this place they would F with us. Luna scowled to Blitzo who seemed to keep looking at the man and didn't feel any regrets. I know what I'm doing, Looney, I will not make him make you feel scared, I'm not going to leave, Blitzo said as he sat on his seat and pointed two fingers in his eyes and pointed at the tailor seemed to give a warning that he was watching him. Overprotective parent. Well, I assure you that I will not make her uncomfortable and neither scare Mr. Blitzo, I assure you. Angelo felt the intimidation amusing since he shrugged off and offered his hand to the gray-haired girl who was wearing nothing more than rock clothing around her. May I? Yeah, whatever, let's finish this F before things get weird. Luna walked in front of Angelo as he took his measuring tape and started to make measurements of the shoulders of the employee of the place. You know, Luna, do you like to drink? A question which seemed to surprise the hellhound who came to mostly to witness the killings around the earth. Well, duh, who F doesn't? The crude reply of the hellhound made Angelo chuckle from her reaction. What's so funny? Oh, sorry about that, it's because of the posture, the tone of voice, and the same answer. I could have sworn that you are sister with Angelo. Suddenly a voice calling from outside of the door made both him and the group stopped in their tracks, and look in the direction of a door. A child's call made the tailor seem surprised and yet happy. Oh, look at that, speaking of the devil, Angelo said as suddenly the door was opened revealing one of the workers who came carrying not the pizza as he asked but brought something else. Hey guys, sorry about the late, the pizza will arrive in 30 minutes, but look who I found over the balcony. Moxie said as the trio of IMP looked in disbelief at what would be a tiny girl who was over his shoulders and what would be a little mix of an innocent kid who was covered in all styles of rock and roll clothing. Oh, look at that, my favorite customer. Angelo chuckled after seeing the girl who went down from her godfather and went directly near the tailor. What the F? Blitzo asked as he watched the scene surprised. AWWW, she is so cute, Millie said as she went beside the girl and hugged her without Ellie noticing. Yes, she is, Moxie replied as he walked beside the group. Anyway, Ellie, I think it's best for you to present yourself. Wowie. There are a lot of people here. Well. My name is Elizabeth Emily Benezer Keith Punk Rock Heavy Metal III, I have 8 years old. Ellie smiled as she presented herself, and by each name she gave Blitzo and Luna's mouths dropped a centimeter. And from the innocent smile and cute voice, immediately made Millie's heart PND and melt immediately. F kiddo, this name rocks, Luna said as she actually imagined giving a name to someone related to her if she had the chance. Someone who named a girl with good taste in genre music should earn respect. Oh please, I was totally against part of that name. Who is crazy to name someone a third if doesn't have the second and neither the first generation of the name? Moxie rolled his eyes, as he walked beside his tailor and gave him the weight of a little girl over his arms. Wowie, it was fun Uncle Moxie, next time let's do this and try to compete with the farm horses. Ellie suggested the idea, and while it palled the young assassin, a key word was spreed which made one important boss stop his tracks and immediately push his employee on the side and look straightly at the girl. Did you say horses? Blitzo asked, which received a nod confirmation from the tiny goth girl who seemed to nod at him excitedly. Yeah, every month my uncle Mr. Sommelier take me to a farm in Rome to ride a horse. I'm still practicing how to do it. Who are you, mister? Ellie enjoyed making friends, and by using an animal both of them loved so much, the owner of the assassin company couldn't help but smile widely at her. Oh, I'm the boss of your uncle. The name's Blitzo and the O is mute. And I love horses more than anything in the world. Blitzo said as he pointed at the man who was fixing his fedora and kept watching both of them. Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Blitz with mute O. Do you love them more than ice cream? Ellie asked as she genuinely never found someone who could love anything more than ice cream. Especially ice cream. Blitzo smiled even wider than the girl, and she looked at him in complete awe. Wow, you really must love horses. Ellie contemplated the smiling face of the human who seemed so new to her. Yeah, he really does, Ellie. Now let me present you to my cow friends. Moxie coughed before saying the word co-workers and decided to exchange to friends rapidly to make sure that everyone was friendly to her. You can see my boss Blitzo, the person who is being ready to take a measure on the new clothing is his adoptive daughter Luna. Sup BRT. Luna decided to roll her eyes while Moxie presented her to the little kid, but she was kinda okay with the fact that the fatty in her own words didn't try to be snarky or insult her in front of the little girl. The glare she was receiving from him at that moment was sweet and delicious. But suddenly the sparkling eyes of the girl made her kinda awkward. Oh, she looks like mom. Then the huge bomb drop coming from the little girl, made Luna loses her entire composure. What? Luna asked in disbelief. Elizabeth, please be respectful. I know for sure that Luna is kinda a prudish, a goth. By every insult Moxie talked, his voice became slower as his eyes little by little went wide open. A lazy rebellious punk girl who always liked to drink, and flirtatiously with many men, insults me all the time. She feels like OF Luna is punky. Moxie then looked at Luna, her style of living, the insults, the way she drinks, hell, even the appearance. That was my first impression as well. Angelo, who watched Moxie suddenly realize the connections between the two girls, couldn't help but chuckle from the shock of his friend. What the F is the meaning of this? Fatty, you better give me an explanation. Luna wasn't actually amused and was quietly annoyed by the fact that she doesn't know what they were talking about, but seeing Moxie looking at her differently than normal, made her feel weird. Well, I think it's best if we wait for Ellie's mother to come here. I think that would be a great way to explain this. Moxie couldn't help but scratch his head in the back awkwardly. This duo is weird SHT, Luna mumbled, but her curses made Moxie's eyes open even more in shock. What? Sorry. Moxie apologized and went to the side to whisper to his friend. DMN, even the insults were almost the same. That's something I can agree on. Both gentlemen gave glances at each other who seemed both surprised in their own way. Maybe that's why I think I'm so used around her. Now everything makes sense. But carry on, Ellie. Please say hi to my lovely wife and your Aunt Millie. Moxie's comment didn't even help since he saw the hellhound growling angrily by being in the dark, so he decided to show the little girl to the woman with tan skin and who seemed so happy and excited to meet the tiny children in his arms. Ellie gasped as her eyes sparkled like stars, as Millie didn't even give time and already hugged the girl over her arms. "Oh, she is so cute. A lovely child," Millie said as Ellie giggled from her strong yet delicate arms, which made her even see her uncle who seemed too happy to see this scene. "She is cute, uncle, can we keep her?" Ellie asked, which made Millie's grin become even wider, and Moxie chuckled from such a question. "That's what most of us say when she is around us. Ellie always had the power to mess with our hearts like that." Moxie patted the head of his goddaughter who smiled with gusto. "Now, check this out, Millie." "Ellie, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "A professional assassin," Ellie replied with such happiness while Moxie closed his eyes without letting sink the answer. "Oh yes, exactly," Ellie always had potential for being. Moxie, who was smiling from his own ignorance, took at least 3 seconds before realizing what she just said. "Assassin? Assassin?" Moxie shrieked as he glared at the tailor who chuckled from the demonic godfather a few steps away from him. He. Taylor ignored the bloodshot eyes coming from his friend. He was focused on sizing the body of the receptionist of the company before the meeting was over. "So how is your profession while working with the company, Luna? Aren't going to go missy with me?" was the first question as an outraged shout was being heard from away from their conversation. "What do you mean an assassin? I thought you would be a scientist." "I just wanted to follow your steps, Uncle Moxie. I even learned how to use explosives." "You used explosives? I'm going to have a serious talk with your mother." "I knew she was irresponsible, but not in that way." Moxie shouted angrily as he felt even worse knowing that the life he didn't want for Elizabeth was the same one that she wanted to do. "Of course not, like Punky, your style was something outside of the box like I usually work. She always hated when I called her formally. She even used a bat to try to beat the SHT of me for saying that she should act like a MDM. Angelo chuckled, even surprising the hellhound who became silent and contemplative for the woman like they always talked about. "It's strange that you always talked about this Punky. Is she really like me?" Luna was getting annoyed but curious. "Yes, she was quite rebellious, and free of spirit a few years ago. Moxie's disappearance made a drastic change over her life, but I still believe deep down she always wanted to be herself and don't care if the world is burning." Angelo gave a look at the Luna's bub and already identified which sizes were, and prepared to give other questions. "So your profession?" "Oh, right. I'm their receptionist." Luna replied, which received a hum from the tailor who was sizing most parts of her body and even feeling kinda uncomfortable. Thankfully Blitzo was so distracted by the little girl who seemed to be happy to talk to him, and she couldn't help but smile by seeing her godfather with his eyes twitching angrily and getting into a discussion with her adoptive father. "Oh hell no, sir. Ellie is out of the question, she will not work with us." "Oh come on Moxie. Look at this baby girl, isn't she the most precious potential for a serial killer?" "Sir, with due respect, F.U. I will not let Ellie take such a burden and have BLD on her hands." "But I already have BLD in my hands." "What?" "Yeah, I just played with a scissor and I cut myself in my hand, it was all red." "Sigh, thank F, I thought she killed someone." "Ah, kill? I exploded a school once. Without people inside, right? Punky FDMN it, UB. What did you do to your daughter? Do you like to kill? Like your coworkers?" Angelo asked, which received her hand making so movements. "I usually don't care about the job, it's just I have to be their receptionist, but when someone wants to with me I just kill them." Luna scoffed at a time of some weird shitheads who tried to win over her, and the bodies she disposed of that day was a good DLVRY at the Cannibal City. "Interesting." Angelo managed to take the final measures around the body of Luna, and he gave a nod to his assistants. "Okay, I think that's good enough." "Just like that?" Luna asked, as it seemed the time she passed with the tailor was faster than most of her group. Yes, from my experience, you wouldn't be the kind of a person to share more answers without offering at least 3 bottles of alcohol, and since that, your group is going to be on a mission tonight. I wouldn't like to offer such a deal and ask more about your personal life. Angelo said as he started drawing with his sketchbook again. Luna, looking at him in disbelief, couldn't help but snort by finding that funny. Okay, you have a point. For you know, I like gray and black. So please make them my main colors. Of course. From my time passing with Punky, oh God, how much I suffered dealing with her, I can imagine how your style would be. Let's see, there you go. Without passing time, once again Angelo proved himself as to why he was essential for operations of dressing before killing. Luna passed the time examining what would be the version human of her face, dressing nothing more than a style of clothing not just that made her look cool but made her look like she could go anywhere, from fancy dinners to an OG party as well. It was a black blazer, with a dark gray top between her belly and the up part of her chest. On the part behind her blazer, there was casual clothing that seemed that she could use to cover her front and make it like a suit. And there were zippers around the sleeves which ensured that it would be attachable for when she wanted to be without sleeves. Over the buttons, there were shapes of skulls, and in each skull, there was a chain connected between them. Over the sleeves, there were spikes that were attached to the leather. And under the blazer, there were her pants, which it was customizable that it would make her change for a skirt if she just takes up the legs of the black pants. Luna, if she was in her usual form, could see her tail wiggling excitedly, since the style looked so much for her. And she never thought that she would see something so awesome and hardcore being treated as fancy and elegant. I will take that you loved it. Angelo smiled, which made Luna snaps from her thoughts. Angelo, I take back all the bad thoughts I had about you. This SHT is awesome. Luna replied, which made the tailor chuckle from her reaction. Yeah, I received that from many people. Now it seems that all the team is wrapping up. I will take the lead and already start making these suits. Angelo noticed that Moxie and Blitzo, as the same, were discussing their opinions. He smiled at the little girl who was talking and having a great time with the husband of his friend. I will bid you farewell, and I wish you all success on your mission. Wait, and what about the pizza? Moxie said as he looked at his friend, actually chuckling. You can eat it. I'm doing a diet on carbs. By Moxie, by Elizabeth. Angelo's smile was enough to make Moxie groan angrily, but the little girl giggled as she waved to her uncle. By E. Angelo. By assistants of Angelo. Ellie waved as his group of assistants left the meeting room, making all the silence sink out, comfortable, and with a good presence of a silly, innocent girl. Not after long a group of people approached with what would be pizza boxes, making the entire group excited to eat something at lunch. Well, it seems that we already got weapons, got blueprints, a plan, and suits for this mission. What is missing, Mox? Blitzo seemed to enjoy his pizza. As the group glanced at the assassin with a fedora. We just need to finish one more meeting and then we can prepare ourselves to go. Moxie finally couldn't wait. Everything was happening well. Most parts of his friends seemed to be happy with his coming back, and it seemed that his paranoia was taking the best of him, so maybe his death wasn't that bad after all. Man, this day is just getting better. We are having a great time here. I know for sure that everything will be fine until the end. Blitzo didn't even have time to finish his sentence until the door was slam opened with a kick. What the hell is going on over here? A voice shouted at the wide open door, making the entire group excluding Moxie turn their heads, and see a wild woman, who seemed so angrily and scared at the same time. The male imp, who was the person who knew whose voice was, remained calm as he sighed and didn't turn his head to see. What the F? Blitzo asked as he looked at the angry woman who had her messed hair, and suits which entered the entire room demanding questions. Who the F are you? Mummy. Ellie called happily at the woman who gave a blazing glance over the group. Mommy? Blitzo and Millie asked at the same time. I'm her F mother. Who the foo? Punky was going to shout, going to fight, going to demand reasons of why they took her daughter, but suddenly her eyes glanced aback, a familiar back which made her entire body frozen, a back that she missed so much. A man who was there like a statue, yet showing any kind of a feeling. But the same intense feelings the woman had at that moment because of a huge calm which certainly would be the start of a storm. With the same posture, the same suit, the same fedora, the same gloves, even with his back on her, Punky little by little felt that her entire eyes are lying to her. Moxie. Punky, who seemed to be like an angry tiger, felt like her entire body went shut down, and her entire voice of bravado like thunder went into a shy voice. Long time no see, troublesome girl. Moxie's tone was harsh and yet lovable, like some older brother who calls his sister names because he loves to mess with her. Oh. As the huge obsidian walls showed the elegance of the castle, the trio walked over to what would be an entire dining hall which resembled enough size to fulfill with 3,000 creatures. As the tables showed many pictures of what would be royalty over the castle, creatures part bird, part demon, and party royalty, with each of them having something in common, all of them having 4 eyes, all the males, and the last picture was a huge picture of what would be an intimidating king, a appealing queen, and 2 tiny owl babies staring at the front of the picture. The human, as he walked over to the dining hall, felt amazed by all the space which had the hall, as the duo in front of him walked straight of what would be a female owl with a appealing clear dress which had the colors white and a slight shade of pink and violet, as her white feathers were white like snow, as her violet's eyelids showed the best combination as her golden hair and appealing crow over her head. As she eats calmly her breakfast, she heard the footsteps of the company, and surprised by the trio walking in her direction, she used her napkin to clear her face, and as she was ready to greet them, she suddenly stopped and stared at what would be the face of her son that she didn't have seen during decades. Her eyes went wide open in shock, as she raised her hands in her mouth in disbelief. Paimon, is he? The melodic voice from her throat showed nothing more than surprise and hope. Jezebel, don't ask pointless questions. You are his mother, of course you know it's him. The king glared as the queen got up from her seat, ignored the snarl of her loved husband, and quickly went in the direction of one of the sons she didn't have seen for decades. Winston. The female owl quickly went directly to the human, who got surprised as she jumped and hugged her son. The manager of the Continental didn't know what to say, after being unable to see her for years. The only time he managed to have some contact with her was just by telephone. It was an experience he didn't have during so many years of his life. It felt so alien to him, the lovely mother he had for so long. Finally he had a chance to see her once again. Like all the reprimanded feelings inside of his chest, his eyes became red as the flow of tears appeared over his face. It took so long to hold for so much time, and he never thought he would be surprised in such a way. Mother, Winston said in the most polite way, but deep inside of his own heart, he felt the love of a mother that he didn't imagine remembering for so long. The hug was such a powerful thing. As the 2 members of Goetia's family were left alone for their reunion, the king caressed his beard and looked at the silent son, who seemed to be ashamed. Stolas, I want to have a word with you. The king was direct and didn't even wait for his son to reply to his suggestion order. Both owl demons turned their backs and walked outside of the dining room, making the duo of happy royalty enjoy a long time together. As the door was closed, Stolas turned his head, avoiding any eye contact with his father. And the king himself didn't even bother for being ignored. I'm not going to ask you if you love your wife or not. Or neither of why you decided to have an affair with an imp. My only question is if you do you know the consequences. Stolas felt that he was trapped in the claws of his own father, as the gleamed angrily red eyes appeared on his face. Showing the shadows around his body creating many forms, Stolas decided to once again glance at his father. I know the consequences, father. I don't care if my reputation is going to be in the mud for having lust of an imp, and I have a daughter that I love most than everything in the entire world. Stolas decided to give his points, but he was interrupted by the angry tone of his father. I wasn't talking about her, Stolas von Goetia. King Paimon's face became like a beast as he angrily shouted, enough to make the entire hall tremble like an earthquake and even make Prince Stolas shrive in fear. I'm talking about your wife. The marriage was a proposition of both sides of the same family unity tides and make us an even more powerful royal family. And if you didn't even have feelings for your future wife, you could have just rejected her. That I would have nulled the marriage contract. And now, you didn't just break the unsacred votes of your marriage, but you made her name in the mud. Not just her, but her side of the family is humiliated by your own F-up. The walls over the castle became crystal like ice, and Stolas himself felt like he was a little bird who just felt scowled by his angry father who discovered his worst secret. She wanted to kill you, to save her face. At the moment King Paimon said that Stolas' eyes went wide open, which made him shocked from such a way his wife could be so low into doing that. But from her perspective, I don't blame her. Father, Stolas shouted outraged from seeing that his father sided with his wife who is trying to kill him. Don't ever doubt that I don't love you Stolas, but you made your wife become like a joke into the royal around the 7 rings. Do you know how much she tried to make damage control over her family? Face the facts Stolas, she is in shambles, she is desperate. Do you even love her? Do you want me to kill her? Just say a word. I can finish this problem right now. Paimon's voice was like a growl with static which made Stolas almost misguide him that he was working with the radio demon, but he never knew who his father worked with since he was so powerful. Stolas thought for a few minutes, and while he felt angry knowing that his wife was trying to kill him, he doesn't felt with the longing to kill her. He thought about what Octavia would think about that. And from that, he came to an answer. I don't know, I apologize father. Stolas couldn't find strength in being so low, and from the relaxed shoulders his father was showing, maybe that was the right decision. It seems you have your head in the right place. But now I will say what things will work from now on. You and Stella will be divorced. King Paimon makes a decision, and the decision of his voice was not just from the entire Goetia family, but the dark world of both hell and both earth. He was the true founder of the criminal world, and many regretted following one wrong step from his orders. And yet, from the first command made Stolas look at his father horrified. The news which will appear will be, Gothia princess flees with the second prince after the heir of Gothia betrays over lust. What? What are you doing father? I'm fixing your mistake. I'm giving her a life you never gave to her. She will be happier, I guarantee that. And while you failed into such an important task, I will give this task to someone who can actually follow my orders with all his heart. Paimon replied, which made Stolas look at his father like he is insane. You cannot give her to John, he is already grooming over his loss, neither Moxie since he is already married. They cannot follow your orders father. Stolas gave good points which made the king caress his bear like he thought about the possibilities. Perhaps Stolas, however, I wasn't talking about the Jovanoviches, I was talking about the heirs of the throne, and if you weren't up to the task of loving your own wife I will give you to your brother Winston. King Paimon said his final words, and turned his back to the shocked prince, who seemed desolated from seeing his father would go that far. At seeing the gaze of his own father opening the door of the kitchen, he couldn't find words to convince his father into not doing this, but before finishing the door, Stolas could hear the voice of his father again. If is really love, then you should stop lying to yourself about the imp, Stolas. You wouldn't need my approbation to see if you love him or not. But you should be aware of the feelings of the family you have. And like that the door closes, leaving the prince again with his own thoughts. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and CaioCoia on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.